Never memorize something that you can look up. Why would you do that? You went through all this school, you went through medical school and you trained a ton, but why? How is that useful? So the pathway planners are a tool that allow you to not have to memorize. And yes, they were created selfishly for me at first because I couldn't memorize all these genes and all these cofactors and all these pathways and linking them together. No, it was step by step. So I want to show you why the pathways planners were made, basically to facilitate you and your practice and helping your patient and finding strategic ways to identify where potential blockages are with your patient using labs, history, and genetics. So let's get right into how the pathway planners can be useful in your practice. Genetics. Genetic testing is skyrocketing. Patients are coming in all the time with them. Doc, I got MTHFR. There's some dude on the internet is talking about it left and right, and can you fix it for me? And you're like, oh my God, you roll your eyes. He's like, you know what? MTHFR is important, but there's a lot of other things that we need to be working on first. How do you take that step to tell these patients, say, yeah, genetics are important, but we have to work on your whole lifestyle and your diet and your environment. How do you do that? I'm going to show it to you. Epigenetics are the kingpin of how genes work. Now, common epigenetic control points, you've got sugars, you've got inflammation, you have molds, you have infections, you have prenatal care. So how was the womb of the mother, her exposures prior to pregnancy and during? All these are extremely important in how genes work. Now, if a lot of your patients have problems in these areas, right? They have inflammation, they have infections, they have a toxic environment. They're not eating right, they're eating a ton of processed foods. Now, it's starting to damage their DNA, which is affecting then their gene expression, which is then leading to conditions and symptoms, which is why they're in your office in the first place. But what are they doing? They're saying, Doc, I've got a bunch of SNPs, fix my SNPs. And you're like, whoa, back up here. We got to work on all this first because it's the epigenetics which control the gene expression mainly. Yeah, you have some SNPs and we'll work on the SNPs, but we'll work on the genes first as a whole and we'll do this as well. That is the beauty of the pathway planners because on the pathway planners, we have epigenetic control points built into it along with the genes and the SNPs, as I'll show you in a moment. So epigenetic controls, like I was just talking about, where do you find them? Epigenetic controls do what to the gene? They can speed it up and they can slow it down. Wow. Most genetic reports and most patients are coming in and most doctors and health professionals have no clue about how the impact of epigenetics is affecting gene function. They know about SNPs, and they can rattle off a bunch of genes, COMT, PMT, MTHFR, and sound all brilliant. But what they don't know is how the environment and the lifestyle, the mindset, and the nutrients are affecting the genetic function, regardless of SNPs. That is another key point of why pathway planners are so useful. You don't have to memorize this stuff. How many times do you go to conferences and they tell you selenium is good for this condition and that condition? Well, why? Or if a person is exposed to aluminum, they can get Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. Why? Well, you'll start seeing these things affecting the genes. So now, genes make enzymes, right? Most of the time, genes will make enzymes. And so things will come into the enzyme and it will produce an end product. How does it do that? Well, it does it with cofactors. And cofactors are what? Vitamins and minerals. What are you giving to your patients all the time? Vitamins and minerals. But what if they have epigenetic problems and it's increasing or decreasing the activity of the gene? And you're giving them these nutrients and nothing's happening. Well, that's a big one. So let's look at an example. How many times do patients come into your office and you evaluate your homocysteine, which is awesome? And you give them, and you know to give them, not folic acid, you give them methylfolate, methylcobalamin, zinc, and they come back and they say, you know, you order the test again, it's still high. But wait a minute, what do? Do you up the dose? You try doing that. You up the dose. Homocysteine is still high. Man, you're starting to get frustrated, right? Because you're given the right nutrients, you know your biochemistry, but wait a minute. What's this? If you have these factors which slow the activity of methionine synthase enzyme, which is the gene which converts homocysteine to methionine, if these things are affecting this, it's slowing it down, these nutrients aren't going to do very much. You have to remove the blockage before you add the gas, right? If you're stepping on the gas in your car and you're in park and you have the e-brake on, are you going anywhere? No. If your homocysteine is trying to get through, but you got a brake on the methionine synthase enzyme, not working. So you got to remove these things. And what are these things? Lead, mercury, hydrogen peroxide, which comes from where? Infections. It's released during infections. It's also a result of low glutathione. You have acetaldehyde. Where does that come from? Alcohol ingestion, yeast overgrowth, gut microbiome. You know that. Nitrous oxide, dentist, pre-surgery. Nitrous oxide is being inhaled. This is a huge problem. Why? Nitrous oxide destroys B12. Inflammation. Many patients are inflamed. Now, so next time a patient comes in and they have homocysteine elevated and you want to try to lower it, maybe you don't give them these things right away. Maybe you work on these things. And do you have to memorize it? No, because it's on the pathway planner. And you can also show the patient, hey, look, you've got yeast overgrowth. I know that from this and this and this. And we are suspecting various things. And if you ordered lab work, and they are indeed low in methylfolate or B12 or zinc, and you can say, look, you're low in these nutrients. No wonder your homocysteine is high. And they get it. Compliance does what? Way up. Okay? Now over here, this is an increase activity. Okay? If their methylation status is really low, methionine synthase will speed up. Okay? That's just one example. Now let's take it to the next level. Now let's look at it, because this is a gene in isolation, and a gene in isolation isn't very useful. You have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is here. Now this is the folate pathway. So here's the MTR enzyme we were talking about right here, and it's in full detail on the methylation cycle, but I didn't want to show you the methylation cycle. I wanted to show you a more simplified pathway, and this is more simplified. So your patients are consuming folic acid, and they say, well, doc, I'm taking folic acid. You say, well, yeah, great. But you know what? That folic acid has to go through here, 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 all the way down through here in order to make the body's primary form of folate, which is methylfolate. So this is a teaching tool, not just for you and for me, but for your patient. Because when you hold these out or you print them out for your patient and you show them these things, they love it. They love being taught. What does doctor mean anyway? Doctor stands for docere, and docere means to educate and to bring forth. And you're bringing forth your patient to understand what in the heck is going on with their biochemistry and their genetics, and they love you for it. So let's look at this here for a second. When you're looking at the pathway planner, I invite you to just follow the arrows, okay? So first look at things and stay on the path. So just go through here. Folic acid has to go through here, here, here. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm here. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So, all right, DHFR, what's that? So the cofactor is NADPH, and folic acid will slow it down, so will high amounts of green tea extract, and methotrexate. My patient's taking methotrexate. Their platelets are low. And the doctor told him to take folic acid, but wait a minute. Folic acid slows this down, and so does methotrexate. So I shouldn't give folic acid when my patients are on methotrexate. What should I give them? Well, you should give them folinic acid. 5-formyl tetrahydrofolate is another active form of folate right here. So if the patient's doing this, that's the problem. You don't have to memorize it. You stare at it, and you can show the oncologist. You show them the biochemistry as well. And the oncologists go, oh, wow, thank you. No arguments needed. Bam. Now, you keep going. You keep going down here. ATP is needed this. Oh, ATP, that's mitochondria. Mitochondria is pretty important. You keep going. You go down here, and you start seeing MTHFR. And you can see there's certain things that slow it down again. And again, there's research that shows folic acid slows it down, which is what I put here. And keep in mind, all of these things come from research. I have citations for all of these points, okay? It's all in a bibliography. Now, you follow MTHFR, it makes methylfolate, and then after it gets used up through methionine synthase, it comes back around and makes THF. Look, 5-MTHF, so 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Once it donates its methyl group to the methylation cycle, which is over here, then it becomes tetrahydrofolate and it goes through the process again. But you know, as we just showed, that methionine and homocysteine, that conversion is tough. So getting this to happen sometimes doesn't always happen. So I invite you to just follow the arrows, okay? Look at what speeds things up, what slows them down. You can go to labs on your patients. You can say, look, we know you're low in zinc. We know your B6 status is okay. We know that you have MTHFR. And they can start knowing and seeing this thing. That is the beauty of the pathway planner. Yes, it takes time to understand this thing, but once you start understanding it and applying it, amazing things happen. Like increased compliance is one, an amazing teaching tool as well. Now, you get this part, but where are the genetics parts? Where's the genetics? You can't do genetics until you get this aspect. You have to understand epigenetics before you get into genetics. Once you do that, you can also use the pathway planner, but have the genetics on there. How does that work? StrateGene does this for you. StrateGene is a tool that I've developed with some researchers as well to overlay common, clinically relevant genetic polymorphisms onto the pathway planner. And when you come to our conferences and when you take our online courses and you complete some of them, then you get listed in the directory. And since we have thousands of people using StrateGene, they're looking for health professionals just like you. So when you come to our conferences, you're put in the directory and patients are going to be coming to you looking for experts with their genetics. So your patients run the StrateGene report and this is what it looks like. You now know how to use a pathway planner. Now all that's happening is you're overlaying genetic polymorphisms, which are common and very clinically relevant, onto the pathway planner itself. Now this is showing additional potential blockages and why your patient might not be doing very well. Now this is a folate transporter. This is slower in this individual and they also have slowdowns in these genes right here. So is their folate pathway compromised? Yeah, but what if they're also taking folic acid? What if they're consuming dairy products and they have dairy antibodies which are messing up their folate receptors? That's a big deal. So they can't transport the folate very well, that's reduced, and they can't make active folates very well because they've got a whole bunch of blockages here. Plus they're consuming dairy products and they have leaky gut, and they're consuming folic acid. So what do? Well, you get them off the dairy, you take them off the folic acid, and you support these areas down below. Okay? That's the beauty of how StrateGene can take the pathway planner and use genetics at the same time. So it also does a similar thing. It describes what the genes do in detail, tells you the cofactor, which is ribovitamin B2, and it shows you what slows the genes down and speeds it up. Again, patient compliance goes up and they start to understand, wow, I need to be watching my folic acid intake and I need to be possibly consuming my vitamin A. And you run a fatty acid test on your patient and you can see this. And then they can see the two, that we have kinetics on here, and kinetics is a slowdown of the gene. So if you see a number right here, and we don't always have this, this shows that the MTHFR gene is reduced by 20% if they have 1298. And since this individual also has a 677, it's reduced another 30%. So now their MTHFR function is reduced by 50%. But what if they have other things here which are reducing its function, like folic acid or methotrexate or dairy antibodies? It's a big problem. The StrateGene outlines all this for you, and so do the pathway planners. So, and not only that, you've got to take this and apply it, right? And you have to have a community because this stuff is complicated, it's cutting edge, and it's changing people's lives. And when you share and you interact with other people, amazing things happen. So we've created a StrateGene private Facebook group. So when you or your patient order StrateGene, they can come here and we send you a link right after. We have over 550 people here now, and the conversations and the collaboration is amazing, and for finding new things all the time, and I'm learning even from this group. And I post in here often, and also twice a month I hold a Facebook Live event. So this is also included with your StrateGene. And this is also a fantastic way to start applying the pathway planners in your practice and start getting an understanding of how you can learn more at our upcoming conference, the ShyCon 2017. So I invite you to order StrateGene, start using the pathway planners prior to coming to ShyCon 2017, because once you do that, you're going to be coming there and you're going to be already cutting edge. So Seattle, Washington, April 27th to 30th, and it's going to be an amazing event. We're going to have 300 plus health professionals from all over the world. We're going to be discussing the pathway planners, concepts, and the application, presenting case studies. And we're also going to be discussing how to use labs and interpret labs and apply those to the pathway planners as well. So it's an event that you do not want to miss, and I look forward to seeing you at ShyCon 2017. Thank you.